Good evening and hello, everyone. Dave Scott here from Spaced Out Radio. You may know me as the guy with the nice hair and the beard. And we are here live once again on our YouTube channel, on Twitter, on Twitch, and soon to be on the radio show here in a couple of minutes with Michael Huntington. You heard him a couple of weeks ago when we had our media panel for the UFO disclosure leading up to it. Well, Michael is one of the best individuals out there when it comes to research, and we had to get him back on again. This time we're going to get into everything paranormal, supernatural, and unknown, and you're going to absolutely love him. Before we bring him on, let's bring in the audience. In the gold medal position for the first time taking gold, we have the lovely and talented Cosmic Fleur. Race fan comes in second. The gorgeous and talented Emily Bigelow, otherwise known as Alaska's greatest athlete, brings home the bronze. Hey, SJ, gorgeous Steph Dickey, sultry Susie, how are you? Lovely Ange from Australia is here. The gorgeous and talented Jennifer Lane has arrived, everyone. Yes. SJ, what's going on? Let's see where I am here. We got Paul Holland from Australia. Big Rob, Typical Watch, lovely Linda Benton. We have Travis DeLuca, Spanish Fly. How are you? The gorgeous Jenny Metz has arrived. Mennonite Abe and Tawaz are here. How are you? All right. We have Derek Aitkins. Welcome to our chat room for the first time. How are you? And scrolling on down, James Fadkey, always a pleasure. Jack Clark, nice to see you. Ibarata is here. Ibarata will be signing autographs after the show, ladies and gentlemen. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left. Thurston Howell III, good to see you. And scrolling on down, Bigfoot Rob is here. He'll be signing autographs as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. All right. Irish Lincoln, good to see you. Thanks for coming on in. John Ballerman, Snakes on a UFO. The gorgeous Michelle C., also from Australia. Open-Minded Clarity, good to see you. Dog Next Door, thanks for coming on in. Chad Smith, good to see you. And hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Awesome Annie Svensson, Double Tim. Good to see you guys. Thank you for coming on in. And let's see. John Jackson, welcome to our chat room. Nicola, thank you for coming on in. Appreciate you. And my chat room jumped here, so now I got to scroll back up. And where are we here? Okay, right there. Z-Hut, good to see you. Or Z-Hut in the rest of the world. Ben from UFO Garage, how you doing, brother? Thank you for a great conversation before the show. Rich Hilkey's here, everyone. Hey, Millennium, good to see you. Jose, nice to have you back. Christy Bergeron, looking lovely tonight. There she is. Give us a wave, Christy. And the gorgeous Jenny White Bear is here. Gabe, nice to have you back. YJ from Kelowna, I hope you're not burning, man. Are you okay with the fires? Let me know. We're okay up here right now. Alan Hold, good to see you. Travis DeLuca, thanks for coming on in. Sadie Adler, how are you? Are you related to Steven? Guns N' Roses, former drummer, Steven Adler. Any relation, please let us know. Hi, Cedric. Uncle Dale and his power stash are here. Remember, if you're in Austin, Texas, and you see Uncle Dale, rub his power stash. It will give you automatically the numbers for the next $1 billion Powerball. $1 billion Powerball. Mark Salzman, Richard Elmore, how are you? Good to see you. And Drifting 10K, welcome to our chat room. Thank you for joining us. Corey Christopher, good to see you. Jason Hotop, thanks for coming on in. Joe Ortegon, how are you? Welcome from Butte, Montana. Appreciate you coming on in. Hey, Prairie Fire, thanks for joining us. And I think we are caught up. I think we are. And just taking one final look here. And yeah, we're going to get going here in just a few seconds. If I can get my mouse over there. Like that. And remember, a great way to support this show, if you're brand new, give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways. Hit that subscribe button. Ring that bell so you know when we are live. Goya Basad, how are you? Well, Virgil, nice to see you. Well, you're in Burns Lake, YJ. Okay, yeah, you're surrounded by fires. Hope you're doing okay. The gorgeous and talented Nicole Sackage has arrived, everyone. She'll be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up down the middle for Nicole. And the super chat is open as per always. Let's have a good show. We got a new feature in the news tonight. Here we go in 3 seconds. Enjoy yourself, sit back, relax, and here we go. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a good one for you tonight as we bring in Michael Huntington. I'll tell you, this guy literally goes everywhere. Everywhere. I don't think there is a haunted location in the United States that he hasn't been to, or a UFO crash site, or some sort of Bigfoot sighting. You know, this guy has been so many places. Literally, he should seriously just make his own. I don't even know if he has a home. Literally probably lives in a motorhome with his wife and children, traveling across the United States, waving the stars and stripes, saying, let's bring on the weird stuff, America. And this is what Michael Huntington is all about. And I'll tell you, he's got a great website, which is called huntingtonstrangetravels.wordpress.com. You can read his blogs. He's one of the best researchers out there. I'm glad to know of him because the one thing I like about Michael, as much as he studies this, he's very practical. He's very sensible, very skeptical, the way it needs to be. Michael, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back. It's always good to talk with you.
It's always good to talk with you, too. Now, we had you on about 3.5 weeks ago where we were talking and had you a part of our media panel, which I think to this day, I don't think there's been a better media panel out there, not to pat our own backs or anything regarding the UFO subject. But I think, man, that we did it right. And I think we did it strong. And now we're going to show the other side of you, which is about literally the paranormal, the supernatural, your travel aspect of this. How did you decide growing up that this is something that you wanted to study? And how did you end up getting your future wife and now your children involved in this?
Yes, my wife and kids are involved with it. They've been drafted into expanding our regular vacations out to visiting strange and paranormal places. I've always wanted to, visit, the locations that I read about when I was a kid. I come from the generation, in the 70s when I was a boy, where paranormal, UFO, ghosts, Bigfoot, ancient aliens, all that stuff was pretty much found everywhere within, the popular culture, as well as in, the regular news. Close Encounters was real big. In Search Of was on television. Eric von Däniken books, were on the bookshelves, and, everybody read, tabloid accounts of, famous cases, like Travis Walton. That was something that I read about when I was a kid. So I've always sort of had this interest in not just UFOs, but especially UFOs, but in all the paranormal sort of topics, because they sort of are interconnected, right? they're mysteries that need to be solved that, could be open to interpretation, so I've always been interested in the subject. In the late 70s, I really seriously got involved in it. I was only like 9 or 10 years old when I really seriously started getting into the subject, collecting UFO books. I started collecting clippings. I tried joining organizations, but when you're just a kid, 9, 10 years old, 8 years old even, they're just like, okay, we're trying to do some serious stuff here. But I harassed APRO when I was a kid, the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, which was, one of the premier civilian UFO investigative groups of the 60s and the 70s. I, sort of harassed them into let me be, like an associate member, and I got all the the symposium papers. I'm like 10 years old reading symposium papers, scientific ones from people like Hynek and whoever. So I had that experience. I had that interest. I read as much as I could. I was reading like Jacques Vallée, back in the late 70s when a lot of that stuff was new. As a kid, so and I've been doing so ever since. Been a member of MUFON, other organizations. I've been following this topic closely for a long period of time. I actually studied philosophy of science when I came to Southeast Missouri State University, which is actually a university that has relevance because it's where Dr. Harley Rutledge conducted his project identification. The first university field study of UFOs was done here in Cape Girardeau, where I'm at and where I went to school. So I have always had this interest. I've always, been involved in this UFOs as well as other subjects. And I've always wanted to get out on the road and visit these places, to put myself into the spaces, visit where a UFO was, had landed, or where a Bigfoot had been seen, So a few years back, probably like 7 years now, I started, planning, the road trip stuff, seriously researching and getting all the GPS positions, as best I could down to, the square foot, because I think that's really the best way to learn a case is when you get down into the details. And we just started to, taking regular family trips, my wife and my boys. And, there's always somewhere along the way on the road for you to visit an anomalous, place, haunted house, or, where a cryptid was seen, especially here in Missouri, Southern Illinois area. It's just, there's so much lore and so many places to visit that I will probably only barely scratch the surface of having visited all these places. So that's where we're at.
I agree with you, and I got to tell you, when I look at it, and I think that most family vacations, we look at Disneyland, we look at any sort of family type vacations, Michael, where we want to go to that amusement park, we want to go to that beach, we want to go to wherever, see the normal sights of everything, whether it's New York City or the Grand Canyon or whatever it may be. Yet here you are taking your children on an unknown vacation that literally nobody really in the mainstream is going to know about, but it has to be fascinating watching your children grow up with this open mind of all of these really weird and fantastic things that have happened over the decades.
Sometimes we take deliberate trips, but a lot of times, it's just regular trips to places. And, I can't resist, just taking a little detour, here and there. It drives me nuts knowing that I've been, later on by a place that, is, has an interesting folklore, interesting story. And some of it is folklore, some of it is stories. I think, along with visiting places and putting myself in the spot and, becoming, a better investigator, researcher by knowing the layout of places, uh, there is part of me that's also, I want to document some of these things, because a lot of people aren't going to be able to visit some of these places, especially in the small towns, as they're disappearing and the lore is going with them, So there's an archival folklorist sort of aspect to this as well. I do consider myself like a paranormal travel writer as well as, a researcher into all these. And I just happen to think that the best way to do research is to, armchair is great. I'm an armchair researcher, when I'm, researching a place before I go to it. I try to get as much in as I can before I go to a spot. Armchair is great. But I think for me, it's just, I want to go to that next level, and not just be armchair, but to go to places and see if, the stories make sense, the anecdotes, the accounts make sense. And of course, to try to experience things. My kids are up for doing this, as long as there's a cool, like a Chuck E. Cheese nearby or a swimming pool at the hotel, they don't care. My oldest boy, Robbie, who's about to turn 11, he's really starting to get into this. So
cool.
I think I got a convert there for another generation of, picking up where I leave off as far as, strange traveling and documenting things.
For you, Michael, when I look at you, I look at someone who is very in tune with research, proper investigation of these subjects. You look at everything with a very critical eye, but you're open-minded enough to realize that there is possibility and plausibility. And for me, as someone who talks to a lot of people in this field, I would say that is a very rare quality that the majority of investigators have or don't have, to have that skepticism, but not overbearing skepticism. The answers are there. You let the research do the talking rather than your opinion. Why have you chosen to go this way? Or maybe how have you chosen to go this way rather than what everybody else is doing and kind of looking at the subject, looking at the haunting, and basing their results on their own opinion? You're not like that.
Well, I thank you for the compliment. We all sort of, have our biases when it comes to, these topics, specific cases. There's some that we, think are, good cases, and there's, some that we, it's way out there, right? So we all have our biases of interpretation of things that we're, willing to accept and things that we're willing to deny. Evidence. Acceptance of evidence from one person is going to be different for another. There's going to be different standards. I do think we need to develop, some sort of mean standards. But I wouldn't really consider myself a skeptic. Some people might, and there are certainly some cases I'm, highly skeptical of. In some cases, I'm even willing to debunk. I believe in debunking things in a fair way. If something is worthy of a debunking, if it can survive a debunking, then I think it's a worthy, sort of case. Not everything in UFOs, ghosts, Bigfoot, any of these paranormal topics, not everything is real, and not everything can be real. So I try to look at each case individually. I try to judge them on their own merits. If I'm biased towards anything, I try to be biased towards taking a critical stance, but one that utilizes critical thinking. Sometimes that may mesh with other people's theories, but For a lot of these things, absent of getting, some sort of smoking gun, these are always going to be open to interpretation. And one interpretation, whether it's a believer one or a skeptical one, is just as seemingly valid as another. Ultimately, it's going to come down to, the quality of the evidence and whether or not it's, it can be viewed objectively, in a critical or even a believer sort of way. So I try to look at everything in a critical manner. The way science works is you have to exclude things, though, right? Before you go to the extremes of, saying it's, an interdimensional leprechaun or, whatever, you have to look at certain things. What is our standard of evidence? Is the witness account, is the person credible? What do we have? And for a lot of these, there's not that much. Most of these stories are anecdotal, and it comes down to the credibility of the witnesses. And then you get secondary soft evidence, which is, photographic evidence, which increasingly, is more untrustworthy. So then we have to start looking at, what kind of scientific programs can we develop to get the sort of data, to sort of at least figure out some of these things, right? So for me, ufology especially is sort of in a reset mode now, and I would love to see the opportunity where people start to look at these things, with the intent of gathering data, for science, not necessarily just to promote some sort of a narrative. I'm interested in finding what the real truth behind things are, and that's what we should all be looking at, and making sure that we're not even, deluding ourselves.
Deluding ourselves, I think, is a real good way to put it, because we all want to believe. That's why we are in here. That's why we're looking into this subject. One way or another, we want to believe that Bigfoot is real. We want to believe that there's a Dogman running around the forest terrorizing people. We want to believe in fairies and gnomes and aliens and UFOs, and that, my grandfather is speaking to me from the other side. We all have that wishful thinking, but the experiences people are having, granted, they are very real to them. My experiences are extremely real to me. They changed my entire life. How do you justify, personal experiences from the data? Because so many times in this field, Michael, the data does not support the experience.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much where a lot of it, comes down to is people are having experiences, and meaning they're having sightings, where there's different levels of participation between them and whatever they're in front of that's anomalous. If a ghost is in front of somebody, or a Bigfoot or a UFO, it's really the same sort of thing, because you're dealing with something that's not supposed to be there. It's anomalous. It's it's an offset from reality. And how is it being perceived? It's being perceived by a person, and people are open to all kinds of environmental conditions that can create illusions and all that sort of stuff. That's true. I don't think we can say that nobody has ever hallucinated something before. But when it gets down to something that's detailed and it's obvious that somebody's experienced something, that's when we should take notice. I've experienced things. I've been in haunted houses and in woods, where Bigfoot has been seen. I've seen UFOs on multiple occasions. I've experienced synchronicities at phenomenological hotspots that blow your socks off. I've seen a lot of different things. I experienced a lot of things. Where can we go from there? Do we just take my word for it and then change the scientific paradigm because I experienced something? Maybe a lot of people have experienced something. Ultimately, then we have to get to how do we go past just the anecdotal experience, and how do we make something objectively provable within our reality. For somebody who experiences something, for a lot of people, that's all they need. They're believers because they saw a UFO in front of them, or talk to a ghost. And no other evidence is necessary. Unfortunately, that's sort of a faith-based interpretation, right? No evidence is necessary beyond our experience. How it influences us, how we perceive it. But for me, I'm more interested in, is there an objective anomaly? Is there something phenomenological occurring? Would somebody else have experienced the same thing had they been in the position that somebody else had been in? If that's the case, if we're dealing with an objective anomaly, then that means we're dealing with something worthy of scientific investigation. That should be the purpose of science. Period. If there's an anomaly, you need to develop a program to try to figure out what the problem is. If there's a big question mark sitting right there, we may think that we know the answers, and we should certainly not just rest at anecdote, because that is the weakest form of evidence. But we should also not dismiss it, because that's where we get the clues that there is a mystery. That's how we find out that there are anomalies. That's how we know that, these woods over here, something's going on. I've traveled a lot of places, and, I've GPSed, thousands of positions. And, when you do that, for UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, whatever, you start seeing these patterns. You start seeing that there are some places where this is localized, and that's when it, put the stories aside, if you look at these maps and if you look at the data, maybe we should look at some of these places and see why people are experiencing things in these locations. It may be something, natural. It may be something, it could be something interdimensional or spiritual even, in some of these places. Maybe certain locations, because of how they're made, geology, water movement, maybe there's some sort of membrane that's thinner at some of these places to where other realities, other times or whatever can slip in. For me, that's a fascinating sort of thing. That's where we take the stories and, we run with them, and I like going back to these places, especially because a lot of these places, especially these old cold case UFO, nobody's doing cold case UFO investigation, really, out there. Not too many people. Everybody does Roswell, but nobody's going to, where the space penguins of Tuscumbia were seen in the '60s in Missouri. Nobody's going out there, and I think we should start doing that. Just to preserve the stories, but also to see over the years if there's anything lasting. If you go to places like Tuscumbia, you will find that there's still a circle there in the ground. Where this flying saucer supposedly landed.
No kidding.
Years ago. So that's another thing I like to do is to go to some of these spots to see what else we can learn.
Michael, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We are in for one heck of a show tonight. Michael Huntington, HuntingtonStrangeTravels.wordpress.com. Check it on out. We'll be back with more after this. All right, we're clear. Hold on, I got your mic on mute there. There we go.
Okay.
Do you still have your speaker up on your computer?
I can turn it down lower.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't affect your headphones, because I'm still getting a little bit of feedback on my end, and it's echoing a little bit. So I've had to mute you in order to ask my questions.
Okay. How is it now? I got it turned down low. I can turn.
Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, awesome start, buddy. Awesome start. So I think what we'll do is I'm going to get into let's get into some strange cases here and strange places you've been.
Okay.
I think that'll be real cool because I never knew that story that you just mentioned about the space penguins.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, never knew that.
There's a couple places, Kelly Hopkinsville also.
Yeah.
Where the goblins were seen. There's marks on the ground still from the 50s.
Aren't you a fan of Hellier for that?
I know Greg and Dana.
Yeah.
And I've watched the Hellier show. I think it's the way they do it's honest. I don't think they're
I liked it. I really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it.
I think it's probably. Sorry, I was just going to say. I think it's probably one of the more realistic. What it's really like. When you investigate these things. It's like you're trying to figure out what to do. You're in these places. Weird things happen, but they tend to be little things. And then sometimes they're big things. It's really an unpredictable sort of deal. I think they're definitely for real.
I think they took way too much heat from a lot of people in the paranormal community because they wanted a lot of action. And the one thing that I like about them is that they take a road and they follow that road as far as they can go. Yeah. And then when they hit the dead end, they reverse and then they go down the next path. It's kind of like a lot of people shit on Grant Cameron for, he's all, saying, has he gone, I don't know how many times a year I get, hey, has Grant Cameron gone loopy? Now he's chasing people who fly UFOs. Now he's chasing portals and trying DMT. No, the Grant isn't loopy. What he does is he gets on a path. He sees that there's potential evidence there, and he follows that path until there is no further path to go. That's what real research is. He's not closing doors because of opinion. He's going on a wild goose chase, which every investigation is, and he's seeing what's out there. And if it leads to malarkey, he'll call it that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, if I was put in Grant Cameron's position, if I had opportunities to go to certain places and meet certain people, I would. It doesn't necessarily, mean that I'm going to agree with them. So, everybody's open to, criticism, interpretation. As far as Greg and Dana, though, I think, their show is given away for free.
I agree.
They are on the lecture circuit, but they've pretty much been on the established lecture circuit, for a long time, and they're not promoting really, books or TV shows, that they're not giving away. So, my hat's off to them. I do think you should be rewarded for the work that you do. If you're writing something, filming something, that's the effort that you put out. I think it's better when it's, done smaller and you can control it. I think when it gets up to network level, that's when, production companies start chopping things up.
Oh, yeah.
Appeal to a demographic. But Greg, Dana, Small Town Monsters, a lot of these independent producers, especially here in the Midwest, they're showing you what they've experienced, It's not scripted. I've been in some of these productions with them, and it is what it is. It's interesting. Does it do TV shows solve anything? No, they're largely entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with the entertainment aspect. I think as long as it's honest and.
Absolutely. Hold on. We got about 10 seconds. Want to say thank you to all our new subscribers. See a lot of new names in our chat room tonight. Super chat is open if you want to hit the super chat up. And here we go with the second half hour. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on the conversation with Michael Huntington, his website, huntingtonstrangetravels.wordpress.com, where literally he travels around the world, North America with his family, typically the United States, checking out all the haunted spots and weird interactions with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, you name it. Michael is at it. And Mike, I got to ask you, right before the break, you threw one at me that I hadn't heard before about these space penguins. Tell us this story.
Okay, well, Tuscumbia, Missouri. It's located in the central part of the state of Missouri. Let me see if I can get my dates and everything here correct. Tuscumbia was it's a small town located near Lake of the Ozarks. And back in the 60s, there was a farmer located just outside the town of Tuscumbia, located off of Highway 52. And man, I'm gonna have to get my dates here on this. I would say it was like 1965. But anyway, this farmer woke up early in the morning to do his regular stuff. Was in his kitchen fixing his breakfast. Looked out his window facing southeast in his kitchen, and noticed that all of his cows were looking off into a distance, like there was, some sort of predator or something out there. Anybody who's a farmer knows, how animals are going to react if there's something that's not supposed to be there. So the farmer went outside. I'll get you the names and the dates here in a second. The farmer went outside to see what was going on with his cattle. And as he approached them, he noticed that there was this craft sitting in his field. It was sort of greenish, bluish, shaped like, it looked like a mushroom, right? It had like a curved top, sort of a little stalk there at the bottom where it was, connected to the ground. Rows of lights around the rim of the mushroom, and the cows were obviously freaked out by that. And as the farmer got closer, he noticed that there were some little men or something scurrying around the bottom of the craft, and they were sort of hard to pinpoint because they were like sort of jerking around. Maybe like 3 or 4 feet off the ground, sort of like a dark sort of thing, maybe like a dark green or maybe parts of it black, but they had some sort of helmet on or something on their face, like some sort of a mask. And the way they were scurrying around and the way their arms were moving, there's probably like 3 or 4 of them. It reminded the farmer of, like a group of penguins. And, this is the space penguins of Tuscumbia's story here. The farmer picked up a rock, to throw at the object, I guess, to get their attention or ward them off, stop bugging my cows or whatever. And he threw the rock, and I think it missed like the first time. So he picked up another one, a bigger one, lobbed it at the flying saucer. I think the aliens, I'm going to say aliens because they're certainly not supposed to be there, saw him or whatever and sort of ducked behind where, the mushroom stalk part, as he's throwing the rock, and he throws this rock, and it bounces off some sort of an invisible shell that was over this craft. I'm going to call it a craft because, I assume that these little guys were riding around in it, right? Bounced off, and I think he did it a second time and it also bounced off. And then he started hearing noise. He started seeing movement, maybe like a rotation in the top of the mushroom part of the saucer. The guys weren't around anymore. He didn't see them. And then it started lifting up. The mushroom part, so I guess descended into the bottom, kind of like Earth versus the Flying Saucer style, or, that platform is very much an Earth versus the Flying Saucer sort of craft, except more, mushroom-like. And then it picked up and shot off, sort of hovered at first and then shot off towards the southeast. And then the guy, reported it, and it was investigated by none other than Ted Phillips, protege of Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was part of Project Blue Book. Ted Phillips was the premier trace investigator of UFOs. Nobody has, come close to him. He would visit sites, especially where there's something that, interacted with the environment. He traced cases where there was evidence left around. He did Delphos and Socorro. He did a lot of these cases where there was landings and landing marks or burn marks or what have you. And this was one of his cases. And as I'm in Missouri, as I'm in southern Missouri, where Ted Phillips did a lot of his research, I've researched his cases probably more than anybody else's, to get down into details and whatnot. And of course, Tuscumbia is one of those places where I went back and looked through some of his old materials, some of his maps or whatever. I had to find the place because a lot of these places there's not a directory of UFO encounter locations where you can just go to any one. You can probably find out a lot of places if you dig enough. I try to look at some of the obscure cases that I'm worried about getting lost. So it takes a little bit of effort to try to match up maps. Luckily we have Google Earth and Street View and all that stuff. I use that stuff quite a bit. I'll find an old case. If I'm lucky, they'll have a map. If I'm lucky, they'll have an address. If not, I'll take whatever I can get, and try to find these spots. And a few years back when I was logging this location in, I was confident that I had found the location and noticed that on Google Earth, visible from outer space, is literally where X marks the spot on Ted Phillips' map. There's a circular pattern still there. From 50 some odd, I guess it was 65 when this happened. So, I think it was 65. I'm gonna have to double check that. I want to say it was Valentine's Day, like February 14th. But I'll get that information here. So that's another problem when you're dealing with thousands of cases. Trying to keep all the names and dates and all that stuff is a challenge, and making sure you get the stories correct. But there's at Tuscumbia, there's marks there, and I was surprised looking at some of these old cold cases. There are still physical things, that we should look at. I'm going to try to make an effort to get out to Tuscumbia. They recently had that area closed off because they were doing some sort of demolition thing. Of course, 2020, you can't just go up into somebody's property, so it's been put on delay. But yeah, I'd love to get out there. I'd love to dig down, and get some soil samples and maybe compare, some of the soil, because there were samples that Ted Phillips took at a lot of these spots. Uh, he passed away recently, but his materials are going to be made available to researchers. Thomas Ferrario, I think, is researcher in St. Louis, where I'm from. He's collating all that sort of stuff, as well as the Marley Woods stuff, the mysterious Skinwalker Ranch type place in Missouri. But yeah, that's an interesting case. It's fascinating. I think it's we need to go back and look at some of these cold case things, not just for the preservation, but to see if we can still get some scientific data out of some of them.
Why do you think a case like this is so relatively unknown compared to Kecksburg, which is almost in the same area?
Well, what do you mean, Kecksburg, like Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
I'm not that close to Pennsylvania, by the way, but
no, I understand that, but popularity wise, I mean,
right.
if you were to compare, the Marfa Lights are more attractive. Sure. Roswell, like you mentioned, is more attractive. Kecksburg.
Yeah, I think Kecksburg is a fascinating case. It's one of my favorite ones. I've talked to Stan Gordon about it. It's but I think the consensus is sort of moved towards that probably being some sort of maybe a Russian satellite or whatever. But again, these are just interpretations, and they're going to change over the years based upon whatever is in popularity, and what has fallen in disfavor. I mean, really, if you bring up Roswell in a lot of UFO circles, you're sort of laughed at now, which is ironic because 1995, oh yeah, Roswell was it. You weren't a legitimate person unless you were doing Roswell, Area 51, or whatever type stuff. But there are, as I've said, there are ebbs and flows of things. I think Tuscumbia has gotten a lot of interest in the past few years, largely because you're seeing a lot of independent podcasts, and you're seeing a lot of YouTube channels popping up. People are able to make their own content, and you'll see. It's easy to make a little, 10-minute sort of video or, a 20-minute podcast on, a lot of these paranormal stories. And I think Tuscumbia is eye-catching because, it's got space penguins, so, it's fascinating. And other people, they want to be different than, they don't want to do Kecksburg again or Roswell or whatever, a lot of the ones that have been done, because maybe they feel they can't add anything to it. I'm interested in it because I'm a Missouri researcher, and it's a Missouri case, and it's some place that I can visit and some place that I can deep dive into. That's why I'm interested in it. I say more obscure cases, the better. There are, for every Roswell, there's 1,000 other cases that are just as interesting. Maybe there's not 300 witnesses, but the quality of the witnesses may be better, and it may be something that may be more legitimate and speaking to something phenomenological as opposed to something that's just got so much cultural baggage on it.
All right, let's change topics here. Out of all the subjects you like to cover, and you cover them all, what is a subject that you think is your favorite?
Well, of course, UFOs. But for me, personally, I like going to like obscure places that are sort of hidden, right? That are like overgrown, and people don't know that there was like an haunted insane farm back there, hidden in the woods, and I get to be in a place alone, right? That's I mean, you can go to the Roswell Museum. You can even go to Roswell. You might see other people there or whatever. But going to a phenomenological place alone, I get a thrill out of that because for one, I can shoot whatever I want, what direction, and I have to worry about other people. But I can also experience, the environment. I'm not out there conducting seances or whatever. I'm more, I try not to provoke things because, for one, I think that's a biased way of investigating. But I try to take in as much as I can. And I'm probably partial to like maybe haunted cemeteries or, abandoned churches that have ghost stories because, like I said, I can, be alone with these places and experience these places. And you're not really trespassing, when you're in a cemetery, you can go to these places without having to, worry about all the other stuff. I just like being alone if I can with phenomenological places. It's just, that thrills me. And they tend to be haunted and they tend to be, cemeteries, I think, for a good portion. But there's so much overlapping though. I love it, especially when you find a spot and it's got it's a a 3-pointer. It's got UFOs, Bigfoot, and ghosts stories that go over the course of 100 years, all within a small area. I love that. For one, I can do 3 times as much work with less effort, but two, I can also I don't have to travel a lot of divergent places. But 3, that's probably the more legitimate sort of place that you want to be, right? I mean, if there's a place that has 100 years of cryptids and haunted Indian mounds and haunted cemeteries, and they had some sort of a UFO flap or a some sort of a Bigfoot type creature flap. I mean, I just love those sort of places.
Do you have a case that really stands out to you in the Bigfoot or paranormal world that to this day just still makes you scratch your head?
Well, I am partial towards the Murfreesboro mud monster because that's one of my local area cryptids that was seen back in 1973, also in 1980 in southern Illinois area, namely around the town of Murfreesboro, Illinois. Typical sort of 1970s cryptid flap. It initially just lasted a few weeks. A lot of young people, at parks or whatnot, seeing some sort of strange creature with, covered in fur with glowing eyes. The Murfreesboro mud monster is interesting in that it was an albino cryptid, like a white Bigfoot, but it was covered in mud. It's called the Murfreesboro mud monster. Yeah, because it was muddy, but also the Big Muddy River actually goes through Murfreesboro. So, yeah, you're going to get muddy if you're in a river called the Big Muddy, certainly. So, yeah, but there was a whole rash of sightings, and occasionally you still get rumors of, this creature. It's just on the other side of the river from me, about a half an hour away. So I try to go over there, and I've been to all the encounter spots over the decades. That's one of my favorite cryptids. Loren Coleman, the famous cryptozoologist who got his start in southern Illinois area, it's just like with Harley Rutledge in Cape Girardeau, just like with Ted Phillips, in southern Missouri. I have all the work of Loren Coleman to follow just across the river, because Cape Girardeau's on the Mississippi in Missouri.
Right.
Across the river is all of southern Illinois. So I've been retracing all of Loren Coleman's cases as well. the Enfield monster and the Murfreesboro mud monster and creatures down in Cairo and different places. But to answer your question, the as far as cryptids, the one case that has really got me, largely because I've researched it more than any other, is the Murfreesboro mud monster. I don't think there's been an adequate answer to what that was, because there weren't too many polar bears in the area, so the bear thing is right out, right? So
I got to ask you, because Nicole Sackage, who works with Grant Cameron, she's in our chat room right now, and she lives on the Illinois side, and
yes.
she's asking you about the orbs and lights around the river in Cape Girardeau.
Mm-hmm.
Have you investigated that? Apparently, a bunch of college kids reported them.
Well, Cape Girardeau has had its share of UFOs. Of course, we have our urban legend account of a UFO having crashed near here in 1941, sometime in April, that predated Roswell. There was the Webb case back in the 70s where a trucker was injured on Highway 55 at the Cape Girardeau exit there near Jackson. A trucker was injured by a UFO. It was burnt by a UFO. This is a case that was investigated by Harley Rutledge back then. And it was the first time that a workers' comp paid out to somebody who was injured by a UFO. So that, that's sort of interesting. But we've had all kinds of accounts of orbs and lights. There was a park here at one time called Mount Tabor Park that had, it was a 3-pointer. It had ghosts. It had, Confederate ghosts. It had lights, UFOs, orbs, all sorts of different aerial phenomena, even some encounters of objects that were encountered by large groups of people. As well as your cryptids. We have cryptid sightings all through this area. Just a few years back, Cape Girardeau, during all the 2017 stuff, Cape Girardeau actually was a blip in the news there because people were seeing this weird ring. It was probably some sort of it was a smoke ring, undoubtedly, but it still captivated everybody, because everybody stopped and looked for a second and wondered what that was. Most recently, last October and August, I think. Yes, Cape Girardeau has actually had Mothman encounters. There have been a couple of them here, and I visited those locations, and I'm going to go back this year during the same time period to see if maybe there's some sort of explanation. Interestingly enough, at one time, maybe 100 years ago, over in that area, it was a bird sanctuary. That whole area, it has since been developed. So, maybe there's some sort of connection. But there's plenty of haunted places right around that area as well. So it's great when these things build up. Yeah, Cape Girardeau, Illinois, all around this area, everywhere is filled with stories like these.
Michael Huntington, HuntingtonStrangeTravels.wordpress.com. Let's go to some of these historic UFO places when we come back on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear. I'm just going to run my dogs outside. I'll be right back, okay? If you're cool with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Be right back, people. Be right back. Dave Scott. Be right back. Dave Scott. All right, brother. I am back. And let's bring you off mute. And hello, gorgeous raspberries. How are you? Let's see who else has arrived. Polar Eclipse, good to see you. I would love to film it. I would. Nicole Sakic said if you want some help with the Mothman sighting, she'd be more than happy to help you out.
Yeah, those are recorded or reported to the Singular Fortean. So that's I guess is their case, but I'm more of a documentarian, I guess, than a Mothman researcher. But we'll see how it goes. I'm still gonna probably look into it, but
yes,
I need to make sure I don't overstep somebody else's case. It's
I hear you
Elias
there.
Whalen's case.
I hear you there. Hello, gorgeous Jenster, Noble Patrick, welcome. And Trucker Andrew, where are you tonight? Let us know. All right. Gorgeous Jules, I know you're listening in. How are you? Right. Joshua, nice to see you. And thank you to all of our new subscribers who have clicked on the subscribe button. Thank you to all the veterans who listen to this show. And, of course, our regulars who are in the chat room. The super chat is open. Thank you so much to everybody who helps us out that way as well. It's a great way to support what we do on a nightly basis here on Spaced Out Radio. We really do appreciate it. And we're going to get going here in about 10 seconds. So stick around, stay tuned, because we're in for another good hour here with Michael Huntington.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Kicking off hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Abscissa. Abscissa is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with researcher, author, blogger, Michael Huntington. His website, huntingtonstrangetravels.wordpress.com. And we're going to get into some weird, strange stories. We'll take your questions in hour number 2 here as well. If you're in our audience, on our chat room, or on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. Michael, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Do you do a lot with sea monsters?
Well, I'm in the Midwest, so I'm landlocked, but I do try to find the occasional like river monster or lake monster. I've looked into the White River monster down in Arkansas, and I got some research trips planned down there. I've been along different sections of the Whitewater where the creature was seen, but I want to get into the the spots where there were legitimate reports to try to get the right angles and the right research, but not too much. I think out of all of these different anomalous phenomena. And phenomena means something that's either phenomenological, something that's a rare occurrence that lines up the right way, or it can simply mean something that is a mystery, something that it is unknown. And I think out of all of these different topics, these unknown topics, I think probably sea monsters, ocean creatures, uh, a variety of monstrous-looking versions of those, whether they be sea serpents or giant tentacled creatures. Those are probably more likely out of all of the different phenomena, because we know that we've explored only a small percentage of the oceans, and we know that there are things down there like that, that they've been able to find you know giant creatures that have been eaten by giant creatures, other giant creatures, so they know the teeth marks, or they've left suctions from their tentacles that are the size of plates, and we can extrapolate the sizes of these things. So I think the oceans are probably filled with some monsters deep down. Prehistoric, probably not like frozen in ice and then thawed out prehistoric, but something that has found its niche and has been able to perpetuate itself. Like the coelacanth that was supposedly extinct. Multiple of tens of million. What was it, like 60 million years or something? Yet fishermen still find them occasionally off the coast of Africa. So. Sea monsters, yes. I don't have any plans to go out to the deep ocean or to the Marianas Trench or anything, so I'll have to leave that to somebody else. In the meantime, I'm okay to find a river monster, a lake monster, even if something's not even a legitimate lake. They tend to have man-made lakes tend to have folklore where there's been things seen. Some of them have actually borne out to, show that there's like large carp or catfish or whatever in some of these water environments that have been monstrous in size. So yeah, whenever I come across a river monster or lake monster, I try to swing by there and take a look.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. With these sea monsters, whether the lake monsters, river monsters, or whatever, I think there's a lot of natural phenomena that goes into them. I mean, even Ogopogo in my area, as I was saying the other day to someone, I think that's a large sturgeon, because we know that sturgeon breed and in Lake Okanagan. And we also know that Lake Okanagan is the start of the Columbia River, which ends up at the ocean separating Oregon and Washington State. And there's a large population of white sturgeon there, much like the Fraser River here in British Columbia. And that's what I think people are seeing. And people who have never seen a sturgeon before, when they see the ribs on its back, it would look prehistoric, because it is a prehistoric fish.
Yeah, I saw a sturgeon that was taken out of one of the rivers in Missouri when I was a boy. I've seen quite a few different things, taken out of some of these rivers, like mugongs, these weird sort of, lizard type creatures, as well as sturgeons. I saw a sturgeon that was probably, I think it was like at least 300 pounds, it was monstrous. I was a little kid, so it's hard to tell, what sizes were, but certainly it looked monstrous. And yes, when if somebody's on a river or a lake and they see some sort of undulating fin that is taking up 8 feet, they sort of extrapolate that out and maybe give it bigger proportions than what it actually is. But yeah, absolutely, you're right. I think sturgeons and large catfish, the White River monster down in Arkansas, it's actually believed now that it was a manatee that traveled up, like a white manatee that traveled up the Mississippi and went up through the tributaries. Arkansas, as well as Missouri, and Illinois and a lot of these places in the Mississippi River Valley, there's, it's just not just one river going down. It's feeding off of entire states. There's little rivers that offshoot. Some of them go back into some really rural, dark areas, that people might not have even have visited in maybe hundreds of years. So there is a connection there. It is a possibility. Will we ever find out the answer? No. Largely these things, especially when they're removed, a century, they become folklore. But
absolutely,
sometimes they come back and people see things again.
All right, question for you from Snakes on a UFO. Michael, do you have any recent incidents to report or comment on?
What do you mean, recent incidents?
Reports?
No, I'm not really a reactive sort of investigator. If there's something nearby, I'll take a look at it. I mean, the Mothman stuff here is, just a few streets over. So I've looked into it. I tend to, focus on, cases, for my travels. I can comment on pretty much any case because I do try to keep up with everything. The coolest UFO excursion that I took recently was in Western Illinois. I visited all of the locations of the 2000 Black Triangle encounters, and there was a lot of those. Yeah, that was great. That was fun. I'd been to some of these locations, but I actually, visited them and tried to get them from, correct angles. I did heavy deep dive research into those. Even elicited Dave Marler, the leading UFO triangle expert, to help me out because I was stuck on one location. I was close, but I believe go to the source if possible, right? That he was the one that investigated it, so he was able to give me details on one of those many locations. And even coincidentally, he was actually over there in the area when I was doing my deep dive into the 2000 Triangle case, and I got to hang out with him for an afternoon while I'm doing a triangle investigation. It doesn't get any better than that when you can, also call in experts, and the guys that investigated the cases. It's good when that happens. Sometimes that happens as well. I'm able to go to some of these places with either people that have experienced it or people that are big into the research. Like everybody else in the field now, everybody's sort of captivated with what's going on in the media relative to what's going on in Washington with the UAP task force. We're sort of coming down from that, hangover type UFO hangover that we've had in the past couple months with, all the hype and the report coming out and whatever. And we're sort of getting back into the normal groove of things, whatever that is. Yeah, I've been following a lot of that. I think everybody's been following that, maybe to the detriment of, some cases that are going on out there. It's kind of hard to keep track of the latest encounters and the latest sightings. Of course, you can go to the National UFO Reporting Center, or you can join MUFON and be kept up on a lot of those online. In the field, UFO Twitter. A lot of people share information about new and interesting cases that are going on. Unfortunately, though, we also have a deluge of fake news and podcasts and UFO YouTube and all that, and not all of them are necessarily reputable. There's a lot of clickbait, a lot of old cases getting regurgitated, that have been proven as hoaxes in the past. So there's a lot of stuff to wade through, to find the interesting case. I think the way these things go, there will be, some sort of, big case coming at us soon. For somebody who's been in this, for over 40 years, every 5 years, there's usually some sort of big event. I'm not saying that scientifically or anything, but usually that's sort of the way it goes. You get some sort of big, Phoenix Lights type thing. So I think a lot of people are anticipating some sort of event coming up here soon. While everybody pontificates and pontifies about, congressional hearings and all that, the exopolitical stuff is really captivating everybody right now. And the media, the blip, the flash that's occurred. And there's been a lot of UFO TV shows to watch too, there's a lot of homework to keep up on in this field right now.
Definitely is a lot of homework in order to do it. I just want to get back to a comment here that YJ made in our chat room. He's from the Okanagan, and when I said that I thought Ogopogo is a sturgeon, he actually says, Dave, I saw the Ogopogo before, and its head is like a horse. I promise you it's not a sturgeon. I've seen them too, and they are not that.
Okay. You usually find that with witnesses, and he may absolutely be right. There may be some sort of, maybe some sort of plesiosaur type creature or some sort of unknown creature there. Do we have, necessary evidence to say that it's a reality? For him, anecdotal accounts, as I've said earlier, it's sufficient for him. And we should take all that evidence in. If there is a horse-headed creature, if there is some sort of large, dinosaur type thing, I'm interested in how, right? Because you need a breeding population, you need to have a food source. That lake is, of a certain size, so we would know how many, could exist within that body of water. For a reproducing population, I think you need like 50, unless it's a creature that maybe like a tortoise, lives hundreds of years or maybe even more. But we're speculating. What you need is a body, right? We need a dead Ogopogo. Sorry. But until we get something like that, until we get like scales or DNA or whatever, it's going to be sort of open to interpretation. Now, we can, and we have been developing new techniques to do just that without going in and actually hunting things. They've started doing DNA sampling of Loch Ness, where they can take the water, which is going to have, a certain amount, will have all the DNA representative what's in there. And what studies in Loch Ness have shown is that there's perhaps, according to the DNA evidence, some kind of, like a giant eel, perhaps some sort of undiscovered eel existing. Yeah, and there's DNA evidence to show that. There's not any DNA evidence to say plesiosaur or elasmosaur or, but, maybe that is what people are seeing. Maybe there's, it does connect to Inverness. Maybe they migrate, they exist there for a period of time, and then they leave, and they're perhaps misidentified. Maybe they actually live in the oceans. Maybe something like that exists, where Ogopogo is alleged to be seen. I would love to find out more. I don't discount people saying that they've seen horse heads or anything. You have to take all the data in and then go with your investigation. And the question is, how do we go about finding that? Maybe we have to do a DNA survey or a deeper field investigation long term to try to find out some of these answers.
We got 5 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Michael Huntington is our guest. Spanish Fly has a question. Which well-known cryptid with a lot of fans do you strongly believe has never existed? I like this question.
Um, I don't know. I'll probably get in trouble if I say that a cryptid didn't exist because, I mean, who am I? I don't know. Yeah, there's some creatures that are undoubtedly more folklore. Especially in if they're from smaller towns and it's been incorporated as part of the the lore of the town or whatever. There are some that I think maybe have been hoaxed, outright not existed. I can't. I mean, I'm stumped. Yeah, I'm stumped. I don't know. I can't think of anything offhand that I can say didn't exist.
Makes sense.
There's always got to be somebody that claims whether they saw it, and I can't say. I mean, I can assume that they all don't exist.
What about garden gnomes?
Garden. Well, I mean, it depends on which story you're talking about. There are, people within the paranormal field and even within ufology that, embrace the idea of, goblins and leprechauns and maybe even, tricksters or tulpas that can change their appearance. There are people that objectively believe that these sort of things have their root in a real entity that maybe appears magical to us, maybe can transcend different dimensions or whatever. I always assume that something doesn't exist, until I see evidence, that there is. And there's not a lot of physical evidence for a lot of things, but if there's a lot of anecdotal evidence for something, I think the preponderance of the evidence at least suggests that there's something worth looking at that has an objective reality. That's my high-handed, snobby way of saying I guess leprechauns exist, or garden gnomes maybe. I don't know.
Who knows? Let's move on here. Mennonite Abe is asking, do you ever do EVP, and what's your thoughts and opinion on electronic voice phenomena?
I have participated in some ghost hunts where EVP has been done. I've also participated in ghost hunts where the Estes method has been utilized, which is a more elaborate blind version of EVP data gathering. I think largely a lot of that stuff is subjective, and it when you tell somebody this is what you're going to hear, it's hard to avoid that influence of hearing something. When you go to a strange place at night, and you're in the dark, and you're recording, and maybe other people are doing. See, that's what you find at a lot of ghost hunts or whatever. They tend to open up places for several different groups, right? So you're not really experiencing a place in a lot of these ghost hunts under scientific conditions. There's got to be interference and pollution from, especially noise, from other people, within that environment. Some of the noises may be coming from ghosts or elsewhere, but that's really hard to prove unless you get into things like the Estes method, where you're asking questions and the answers are given in a blind fashion, to where if the answers are congruent with the questions that you're asking, then that leads to a lot of more questions. Why would this be congruent, right? So I find it intriguing. I think probably 90% of it is noise. Some of it's hoaxing. All of it's sort of open to interpretation. But in a small percentage, you do get some really crazy stuff. Answers that coincide with with information that you have relative to, like ghost stories or the folklore.
I get you there. We got about 30 seconds left, so I'm going to save Jason's question here for when we come back about northern Wisconsin or upper Michigan phenomena events that you could speak about. But I think it's interesting, man, because you never run out of hauntings. You never run out of ghost stories. You never run out of UFO stories or Bigfoot or Dogman. And I guess that's the thrill of keeping the chase alive. Michael Huntington does it each and every year. That's what he does, is he goes around checking out a lot of these hot spots for information, historic spots, historic sightings, historic hauntings. His website, huntingtonstrangetravels.wordpress.com. Spaced Out Radio continues with the second half of the show right after this. All right, we're clear.
Alrighty.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. It's good times, man. Good times.
Good times.
For our audience members, after when we kick off the news, we have a brand new feature tonight for you, which is the what the hell are we calling it? The Unbiased UFO Report. John Hudson, we're going to introduce you to him if you don't know who he is by now. He's always in our chat room, John Hudson, Stetson John, you may know him as. And he is going to be our UFO reporter, keeping us up to date on UFO news every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to kick the news section off. It's going to be real good. We started off tonight, and new feature. Hey, Cajun Jules, how are you? Welcome to the show. And let's see who else is coming in late. Ufologist, good to see you. Oh, hey, Clam. Tony Dewhurst. He's here too. And yeah, we good. All right. We got a few audience questions here for you, buddy.
Alrighty.
That'll take us to the top of the hour. It'll be good. I promise. I promise. I don't think I'm missing any. Oh, the lovely and talented Jennifer Hawkins has arrived. Uh-huh. Who else do we have? Got the EVP question. All right, we're ready. We is ready for anything. Toe Tag, how are you? Any trips planned for this summer?
Yeah, I got tons of stuff planned. Probably going to go down to Hot Springs, Arkansas, and tool around out there. I'm going to go through the middle of Iowa. I'm going to go up to the Van Meter visitor conference up there. I've been to that one before. Nashville. Let's see. Lexington, Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky. Let's see. Cincinnati. Yeah, Illinois, Arkansas. Yeah, all around the area here. Wide variety of stuff.
Very nice. Very
There's
nice.
probably like four or five conferences in there. So when I go to like a cryptid conference or a UFO or whatever, I'll try to, create a route, a different one on the way than on the way back, or if I've gone there before, a different route, just to try to hit places along the way.
I hear you. That's kind of fun. That makes for a good time.
Yeah, I've added some native sites to a lot of my research as well, like, Indian mounds. So I'm finding some correlation between some of these haunted spots with Indian burial grounds, of course. But it's fun to find when they're all there together.
All right, here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with Michael Huntington, his website, huntingtonstrangetravels.wordpress.com. And we're going to kick things off with some audience questions here from this traveler of around America's most strangest, haunted, and sacred places. Jason is asking, Michael, have you dealt with any cases from northern Wisconsin or upper Michigan with phenomena that you could speak about?
Well, I haven't done too much up there, say in northern Wisconsin or Michigan, but yeah, I do have some places up in northern Minnesota and Wisconsin that are on my list. Probably Minnesota would be the Val Johnson case from the 70s, where the police officer's vehicle was hit by an object. I think I have to make the pilgrimage up to the northwestern part of Minnesota to Stevens to try to find the car and the location where the event took place. That's been one that's always fascinated me. It was on That's Incredible, the TV show back in, I think, 1979. They had that case and that officer on TV, and that was one of the most viewed TV shows of its time period. So, I've deep dived into that case, positioned all, where his vehicle was, where it was hit, where it stopped. I know where the car is at, so I'll probably make a trip up there. There's a few haunted spots around there as well. There's there's a mine disaster, I think, up in Wilford near there. Haunted houses all over the place. Wisconsin also has some other cases from the 70s. The Baker family UFO encounter from 1975. There's a few spots up there. Yeah, I'm in southeast Missouri, so when I do plan a long trip, and I've primarily been, in the Midwest and in the South, and over towards the East for the past few years. But we've bought a new vehicle that's bigger for longer trips. So and the boys are getting older, so we can go on longer trips further out. When you started the show, you were kind of joking about, living in an RV, but that is actually the goal. I do this full time now. So, I'm gearing up to, the website that you promoted is actually being redone. But you can find a lot of my stuff on, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I post everything. I put it out there for free. There's thousands of articles and posts and other radio shows, and even a few TV shows and documentaries and stuff that I've done. So I do eventually want to get to the level where we're traveling around for weeks at a time in the RV, documenting these things. I'd like to do it 24/7 if possible, but I'm still living here in Missouri, and we take as many day trips as possible, and we do travel a few states over. Maybe we'll hop on a plane or two, but wherever we go, there's places to see interesting things to document. Wisconsin, Michigan. Michigan, I want to get up there and document, all the Ann Arbor sites, where Hynek did swamp gases and all that. But
what about Dogman?
Dogman is an interesting story. Now, like the Beast of Bray Ridge and some of those things. That's definitely on the itinerary. I've researched a little bit of the Beast Between the Lakes, which is a Kentucky story. I've actually been down through that area and researched that and documented the location. There are a few spots where people have pretty much, encountered like werewolf type things, right? Or large canines, half human, or maybe, just giant, dire wolf looking type creatures. It's interesting. I think the further you go back, the more likely it probably was some sort of, just really monstrous wolf, or maybe even some sort of a dire offshoot, especially in, some of the areas up north. That it's quite possible. The werewolf stuff, I don't know, half man, half canine. That's where my scientific part of me is like, okay, how do we mix species like that? You can say that, like a Bigfoot, it maybe is an offshoot of, primates, but how do you have a half primate, half canine, or is it something else? Is it, how we perceive things? Is there something else objectively there, and we're seeing it, we're interpreting it in a different way? That's a possibility. I try to be neutral when I hear these cases. I think some cases are just outright folklore, especially when it relates to Dogman. The Beast Between the Lakes story is sort of half and half. There are some people that will have anecdotes, have stories, or my uncle saw it, or I saw it. And then there's others that are like, oh no, we were just, some people were fooling around with the grandma's fur coat, back in the 70s, and just got out of control. Either way, it's interesting. Either way, it's folklore. Either way, I'm going to go to the place and I'm going to document it, because I don't know what the answers are.
All right. Joe is asking, Michael, do you see a way forward on the UAP subject without the BS of our politicians, or are we stuck with them for legitimate answers? this just opens up a whole can of worms here, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'm gonna try to be as simple as I can with it. I think I don't think we're gonna find the answers in politicians. Now they may improve the circumstances to where some money can be thrown at the issue scientifically, but who are they throwing money at? Politicians tend to throw money at government projects, and they tend to be pet projects, and sometimes they already know the answers before they have any sort of research program. That's been the history of this subject, over the past 70 plus years. The government has recognized that UFOs are real. They came up with the term. There was something to investigate. They created Project Blue Book. So there's always been sort of a recognition that there's at least some percentage of things that are not explained conventionally. So there are legitimate anomalies. There are legitimate mysteries. How do we go forward? There's a lot of different agendas. There's a lot of different narratives within the field. There are disclosurists that believe in the notion that aliens are here, they've crashed, they've interacted with us. Maybe the government has known about it, maybe even participated in it somehow. Abductions and whatever. There are people that soundly believe that, and that's fine. But with that viewpoint, really the only where to go is either through confirmation of that narrative, either through some undeniable event, or through a disclosure narrative that like, let's open up Area 51. Let's release all the files and show all the meetings, and maybe bring an alien out or show the bodies or whatever. There's all kinds of different ideas as to what disclosure means. Some people say that we've had a disclosure, but no, the government has always sort of admitted that there's things that they don't know are up there. Okay, so it's an all or nothing sort of thing with the disclosure viewpoint. Okay, they're either like Area 51's filled with flying saucers and Bob Lazar is correct, and if that's the case, then that should be the focus. But for me, that isn't compelling enough evidence. I have serious doubts about that narrative, especially when it comes to Bob Lazar, who I think is an untrustworthy witness myself.
We'll agree to disagree on that one.
Well, I have problems with his education, and I think
me too.
If somebody continues to be disingenuous about part of their own story, then I think there are problems with the rest of the story. And ultimately, if that's the case, then a UAP research thing, or UAP task force, or even hearings, all that is sort of irrelevant if they're sitting on a fleet of flying saucers, right?
Right. But I think
the disclosure people, if their reality, if their narrative is correct, then they should focus on that. For me, I'm more interested in the phenomena, and I don't think that there is one whole narrative. I think there is probably as many causes as there are cases. And I think, within those unknowns, there is science to be learned. And I think the best way to go about doing that is, to change a paradigm, you need to convince the existing establishment that the new paradigm is sound. And the way you do that is you have to provide evidence to support, your paradigm change.
Right.
And I don't think we're there yet. Now, if we have flying saucers that the president can bring out, that may go a long way. And I think that's what some people are hoping for. But for me, I think there's a lot of bunk out there. There has been traditionally. I don't think we can necessarily trust anything that comes out of government relative to the subject. And certainly what the government says has very little bearing, I think, on how you change the scientific paradigm. The way you do that is you present science to the scientific establishment, not have, a meeting on TV with a congressman and a hearing. Largely, those things are for show. Now, if we can get some government money that's not, attached to anything, and get some science programs funded, localized areas, I believe is the best way to go. Hesselen type stuff, long-term scientific studies, things that aren't connected with, media, TV projects to where they'll get swayed and biased and influenced, legitimate sort of stuff. But the problem with the military or the government is, the winds of change, aren't consistent. 5 years from now, there may be a new political climate, and then this stuff will be put in the wayside. The past is prologue with this. So the best thing to do is UFO reform, I think, is to reform the field, try to make it more scientific, less on the entertainment side, try to establish some scientific programs to where we can gather data and present scientific papers.
True.
And influence the paradigm. That's the way it's going to go. It's not going to be a TV show that's going to influence the National Academy of Science. It's not going to even be a congressional hearing, I think. I think it's ufology doing serious science. I have
two questions for you. I apologize for cutting you off. I have two questions for you that are very relative to this. Number one, I'm a little disappointed in the SCU, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Research, all right, because I think through this entire process, this is their time to shine, and their PR department has done absolutely nothing to be sending out press releases to the media or getting these brilliant scientists involved in the media conversation. When we hear Neil deGrasse Tyson and others going off saying that this is fake phenomena, I think that the SCU really needs to stand up and sit up. And I'm in the process right now of booking a couple of members of the SCU for a show in September, mid-September. And I'm going to be asking them about that because I really think the SCU has dropped the ball.
Well, first off, the SCU, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, it was the Scientific Coalition for Ufology before it changed within the past couple of years. It's only been around a couple of years, really 3 years, maybe. I am friends with some of the people that started that organization, Rich Hoffman. I've been talking to him and some of the other members for years to try to get them to create, an SCU, because other groups, civilian groups like MUFON has dropped the ball. Bigelow and all his groups, they've really dropped the ball. They've more catered to his personality than anything. ATIP, is a secret Bigelow program, and we, didn't really learn much from that, other than a few cases that have come out just in the past few years. This is a 70-year-old subject, but for many people it began 3 or 4 years ago.
No, I get that, but I really think though that with the power and the brain power of the SCU, they should be, every time there's a major report coming out, they should be putting out a press release. When Neil deGrasse Tyson is going on Fox News or CNN slamming the UFO field, slamming the idiocy of these brilliant fighter pilots, all right, that they don't know what they saw. You don't put somebody in charge of a $65 million aircraft if they're a dummy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and yeah, I think you're right with that case, and I do think that Mr. Tyson it probably needs an education on the subject. But and I've had this discussion with Rich Hoffman. I was at the SCU, the very first conference, and there was a lot of scientists there. It was in Huntsville. I was there in person. And, lobbying people for, more science, lobbying the scientists, for more science. And I think the SCU is going to be doing that over the next few years. It did get, side railed, over the past couple of years, definitely last year because of the pandemic, and this year, because of the pandemic, largely. But I think Rich and some of those people, they are interested in moving in that direction, to creating projects, to having discussions as to where the field should go, creating standards, creating legitimacies within the academic field. And I think Rich recently actually did confront Neil Tyson over social media. And I actually, was defending Neil Tyson a little bit because I think ultimately people like that should be challenged. But I think within the UFO field, especially, there's so many. Everybody considers other people that are not part of their camp as an enemy, and they treat them as such. And there's a lot of people that hate people like actually hate people like Mick West or Neil deGrasse Tyson, or certain people that are dismissive seemingly for cases that they agree with, or different interpretations for cases that they feel is there's an obvious interpretation. But ultimately, those are the people that you want to try to convince. Hynek was one of those guys before he went to the the other side, right? Just being around the subject, a scientist has to recognize that there is something worth looking at. There is science that you can get out of this, and ufology really hasn't been in a scientific stance since Hynek died. It's all been entertainment largely. Hestelin is doing it and has done it since then. That was the last project that Hynek was involved in. MUFON, pretty much became an entertainment company. In fact, their budget reflected that, when they spent millions of dollars on PR firms, right? So the SCU, I've talked to Rich, and I've talked to the people there, and I've lobbied them, and I think there are long-term goals. I think they're in the right position. They're trying to take advantage, I think, of the media. Will they get their act together? I hope so. I do think that they need to push, not for congressional hearings necessarily, but the SCU needs to promote, some sort of reformation within ufology. We need to start getting serious. We need the great thing about their conference, and I lobbied some of these people to do this sort of thing. There was no TV. There was nobody selling anything. Okay, there was no media. It was a closed sort of thing. It was people interested in the subject, legitimately trying to understand some things, and we need more of that. And we need. You're right. I do think the SCU does need to step up their game, but I think they need to step up their game in trying to chart a course for the future of the subject. Because who's charting the course? Is it Lou Elizondo? It's been Tom DeLonge for the past couple of years, right? Who's charting the course? Is it entertainment people? Is it going to be military, political people now? Is it Bigelow and his crowd who largely have pushed this PR program, into the political sphere? Is it going to be those people? What's the end game? Is the end game, a big disclosure, or is the end game legitimacy of the subject? And I think legitimacy of the subject is going to have to come from civilian science, and ufology is going to have to get its act together and start developing some serious scientific instrumented programs long-term, start writing some scientific papers. All the conferences now, other than SCU, they tend to be promotional items for, TV shows, right? Or, books that, tend to be sensationalized. when I was coming up, I told you earlier, I read symposium papers. Where are the symposium papers? Where are scientific papers being put out for peer review? The culture has changed. I think we need to get back to that, and I think we need to get serious if we're going to be taken seriously. And the way we're going to change paradigms is through science. The way we're going to get answers is through science. It's not going to be through a political thing.
We have 23 seconds before we got to go to break, and I know we got other questions coming up from our audience. We have Michael Huntington until the bottom of the hour here. And Michael, one thing that I will say before we go to break, the other thing that the listener has to be careful of as they're seeking for knowledge is look at all these little factions that are jumping up. Learn the players, look who they're hanging out with, whether or not you can decide if they are trustworthy or not, because there's a lot of little factions jumping around from big names to small names, yet together they all think they know what truly is going on. Your questions continue with Michael Huntington on Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, I'm just going to run my dogs outside. I'll be right back, okay?
Alrighty.
All right, brother. I am back. We got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes here. And let me just unmute you. Go like this. And now one of these little moths keeps going onto my screen. I've killed like 5 of them already tonight. There are some questions in the audience that I have missed because the chat room is moving and I've been trying to keep up to them. But if I've missed your question, just please retype it and we'll go from there. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Joe, Jason, and Chad for the amazing super chats tonight. Really do appreciate the love and support you guys have for Spaced Out Radio. Thank you to everybody who's here tonight, giving us a thumbs up. And, hanging on out. We appreciate it. Oh, I'm killing moths. I don't like moths. Especially when they disturb my radio show.
Now you're going to get visited by Mothman.
Oh, well. At least it'll give me something new to talk about. God, nothing new has happened recently.
It does go by week, doesn't it?
I like Jello's question here. What the hell did moths find attractive before light? Yeah, I'm very interested right now in the factions right now and seeing how it all plays out. We're on. Hold on.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Abscissa. Abscissa is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Till the bottom of the hour, we have researcher Michael Huntington. HuntingtonStrangeTravels.wordpress.com is his website. We're going to start off with a question from Tony here over in the UK. And he's saying, hi, Michael. Michael, have you ever come across accounts of saran wrap type creatures like on the Predator film?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of which case it was. There are Bigfoot cases, and there are certainly ghost cases where, that sort of membranous, sheen, invisibility sort of thing. I think my cats are starting to fight right now.
Oh, that's okay.
All right,
we like a good cat fight around here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of. Yeah, I think.
Well, I know that Bruce Maccabee's wife had something like that.
Yeah, she actually took some photos, I think, of what she thought was. I guess she's an avid hunter, and she was in a tree stand near their house, and she had her camera and had some sort of encounter with some sort of invisibly cloaked being. She took some photographs, and of course they came out anomalous, right? I mean, the wife of one of the subjects, one of the greatest photo analysts, in the history of the subject, she takes a bad picture, right? So it's kind of, although I think it was interesting in that case that there were some impossibilities, I think, with that, like some sort of resizing of the picture that shouldn't have occurred. But I think there was I want to say there was a Momo encounter where that there was some sort of invisibility component to it. I'm having a brain freeze as to which one. And certainly there's been some. There was a case in Springfield back in the 90s that was investigated by John Carpenter, who was their one of their chief entity, close encounters, third kind investigators. There was a case in the 90s in Springfield, Missouri, where near to where he was located, that had entities that can appear and disappear, and it was almost described as like a predator type thing. But really, not too much predator type things, previous to the release of the movie Predator, right? So there's certainly a cultural influence, from when the movie came out in the 80s. That would scare the crap out of me. There's a countless number of ghost type things where there's been shimmerings, as they're called, or not full body apparition, but transparent apparitions, partial body apparitions, whatever you want to call it, where you can see through whatever's being experienced. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean that they're out of phase with our reality? If they're aliens, or even some sort of cryptid, do they have some sort of ability to lens light around them, or is it a perception thing? Is it something within our how we perceive? There may be an objective phenomena in front of somebody, but maybe that's this theory is called like the co-creation theory, where there's something there, but we can't perceive it, right? Because it's at a different frequency than us, or it's outside of our realm, or outside of our our dimension, or it's something that doesn't have a tangential form, so it can communicate with our mind sort of in this platonic way. It exists as a concept. It's a creature, but it can only create be perceived conceptually by us, because that's how we perceive the universe, right? So maybe it's some sort of creature like what's been described as a tulpa, or maybe even some sort of trickster type thing that can manipulate how it's perceived by us, or maybe it's as I said, maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe it's a co-creation aspect. It's interesting. It goes on to the question of are UFOs doing this as well? And if something can make its appearance change, if it can be partially invisible or fully invisible at times, how do we investigate that? It gets to the whole problem of how do you investigate something that is transient? How do you investigate something that won't let you investigate it or even see it? These whole problems of incommensurability. How do we investigate and grasp at something that may be outside of our realm of perception? But ultimately, that's all we have is we have our realms of perception. Cases like that, I think, are interesting. I think really high strangeness cases, where, say that maybe there's a unique appearance to, an alien, or it's just so outrageously, unbelievable that you have to believe it. I think the high strangeness cases are definitely interesting to look at. And if anybody knows of any more, of those invisibility type cases, I'd love to hear some more.
All right, let's go over to Chad here. He's hoping for some woo stories. Any good campfire stories that you've investigated that are just weird and strange?
Oh, let me see. I got my map in front of me. I got, thousands of different entries. Let me see if there's anything that... what are we looking at? Are we looking at monsters, UFOs?
Paranormal? Ghosts?
Paranormal. Let's see. I did an overnight investigation with the St. Louis Paranormal Society at the Grand Ole Theater in St. Louis a couple of years back. That's one of those old style, beautiful theaters. The turn of the last century. Where they did things up in a grand style. And this theater had always had reports of hauntings. When you have theater hauntings, you get the same sort of story at a lot of these theaters. Believe it or not, the preponderance of these haunted theaters have some sort of lady in white. What that means, I don't know. Does every haunted theater have to have some sort of, some of them have a lady in red, but most of them have like a lady in white sort of story. I think a lot of it is largely folklore, but there's also legitimate accounts and even photographs of some of these places. The Grand Ole had a lady in white, and of course performers that didn't want to leave the stage after so many decades. But what was really interesting at that place is within recent years, people have started seeing shadow beings. And I think you're starting to see a lot of that creeping into a lot of these stories, and I'm not talking seeing shadows. I'm talking like beings walking around that, similar to what we were seeing earlier about, a lensing effect, except in this case, they're devoid of any sort of light, right? But they have, the human appearance about them. And I investigated there at the Grand Ole, and I had taken pictures of this one stairwell, and I learned later on that I pretty much had the exact same angle as somebody who had been there with, I think, the previous year or the year before that, who had taken a shadow being picture right at that exact same spot. That sort of creeped me out. It's like, and that's happened before where I've gotten precise angles, that other people have gotten, and where there's been anomalous sort of stuff occurring. But I did get some interesting things on photograph, shadows, but ultimately it's a picture of a shadow. So I don't know. I've been in some places where I've been touched. I've been in places where I've been pushed. I've been in places where, doors have closed. I've seen mists. I've seen shadows. I've seen orbs. Generally, if you're in a lot of these dusty places with low light, orbs tend to be, natural dust or whatever. But sometimes you'll get orbs that, don't behave like dust or even insects, and when they occur or reoccur within areas that have some sort of, connection to, like say a person has, died, was hung there, that happened to me when I was in Alton at the Centenary Church there. I got a bunch of weird pictures of this orb, and like I said, normally, I've studied optics and photography. I have an art background and all that. So, I know when I'm seeing something that's anomalous photographic, but this was actually, something not that. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And it was reoccurring in a phenomenological spot. It only showed up in the one spot continuously where somebody was hung. Actually, somebody was murdered, and they were murdered in a church and then hung from this specific rafter. And this is where I, kept getting this one anomaly. I've taken pictures of faces at the Crescent Hotel. I have a picture. You can find some of these on my Instagram. That's where I put a lot of the photographs and stuff of these investigations. A face at the Crescent, the Morse Mill Hotel in Missouri near Hillsboro, a haunted spot. It was actually supposedly haunted by Bertha Gifford, who was a famous female poisoner, a serial killer, who's actually buried literally a stone's throw from this haunted hotel. Up in the attic where people have seen children playing, I actually took a picture of what looked like an old woman peeking around a corner sort of deal. What it is, it could be just light. It could just be, light, shadow. I do believe that pareidolia is a real sort of thing, but, we're talking pareidolia in a place where people are seeing ghosts, right? So that makes it a little different than, say, looking at a cloud. Incidentally, at Morse Mill, there was a room where there was a prostitute at one time. And supposedly if you bring chocolate and leave it in the room, and especially if you're a man and you're alone, you will feel somebody rub your leg or other parts, right? So I tried that experiment, and I didn't get physically molested or anything in that room, but I did get some interesting photographic anomalies right after I did that. Again, I'm not coming to any conclusions, but it is interesting. Pretty much most of the places that I go to, will have some sort of little thing like that, some sort of synchronicity. Synchronicities are, people may be familiar with Greg and Dana Newkirk, of Hellier. They do the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal. They're friends of mine. And contrary to popular opinion, legitimate in the field investigations, the type that they do, what they are very realistic in what's going on, more so than the big elaborate stories that you see on these ghost hunting shows or whatever, where it's largely reality TV formula. What you will find in serious investigations at places, phenomenological spots, is you will find an abundance of synchronicities. And synchronicities meaning coincidences that just go beyond coincidence. We can always go back to Repo Man, the movie, and talk about, shrimp and plate and all that sort of stuff. When words coincide, coincidentally with what's being, talked about, something gets presented that shows that you're on the right path. And I find that to be, every time I travel, there's some sort of synchronicity like that. If I'm going to, you were talking about moths earlier, if I'm going to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which I've done before, last time before we traveled, I literally was finding moths everywhere. Now, is it because I'm open to it more, or it's on my mind more, and, I'm just catching it because that's at the top of the brain list for the time being, perhaps. But when it continues and it persists. And, when you're going to Dayton, Ohio, and the whole way you're behind a truck that says Dayton on it, when you're riding from Missouri all the way to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and you're riding behind a truck that says Dayton, or you're going to Point Pleasant to Mothman again, and you're going down the Huntington Highway, little things like that just really make it worthwhile. And it's interesting, it's fascinating. The numbers for some of those synchronicities, just using a Bayes theorem of probability. My background is in philosophy of science. Some of the coincidences that are found synchronicity wise are just mind boggling.
Let's see. We got about 4 minutes here. Let's try and sneak in Lynn's question here, who is asking, have you ever investigated any stories with black-eyed kids?
I have not. That's actually, a relatively, new sort of, I guess you would call it a cryptid or a paranormal, niche. I have talked to Redfern about it. He's written books on it. He thinks it's a legitimate sort of thing. Of course, there's a lot of cultural influencers now. You tend to see people that are, talking about black-eyed kids. They tend to be younger and, plugged into a lot of the social media. There is a lot within the culture, within the subcultures, paranormal especially, paranormal subcultures. There is quite a bit of material. Nick and other people have, done documentaries and books and such on it. I haven't had any real experience with it. Maybe I should look into it some more. But yeah, I got so many other trips for other phenomena way ahead of me. It'll probably be a while before I get to those.
Very true. Okay, let's see if we can sneak in one more here before we gotta let you go. Let's go to Fab here. What's your thoughts on the rake? Demon, alien, something else, or fake?
I think it's largely a cultural creation. I think it's certainly the case can be made, because you can see where it first appeared, on the internet. It did come out of, some of those creepypasta, sites, on Reddit and other places, just like Slender Man and all those. Now, does that mean that it's not a real sort of thing? There are some people that legitimately claim, to have seen the rake and Slender Man, and other, creepypasta type creatures, things that were originated most likely as, a folklore story, a scary story, on the internet, which leads to other interpretations that maybe there is a phenomenological being out there that can, again, like I was saying with the tulpas, maybe it can manifest itself as a Slender Man or a rake or whatever. I haven't seen any real physical evidence or photographic evidence. I've seen videos. They've been pretty sketchy, not really convincing evidence video wise. Certainly, there's some CGI manipulation, and of course, with a lot of this stuff, you have to look at the sources. There's a lot of clickbait, a lot of fake stuff out there. That people will put out because they can get 100,000 views or maybe even a million views, and they're raking in money off of it. So that's something that we're up against. But the rake, I'd have to say no until I see anything otherwise more substantial.
It is that time for us to say goodnight to you, Michael Huntington. We really do appreciate you always coming on Spaced Out Radio and being a great fan of this show and a great guest. Your support for what we do is always second to none. Thank you for being a part of us here on Spaced Out Radio tonight.
Thanks for having me. If anybody wants to contact me, I'm on all social media. I'm more than willing to chat. And thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
Always appreciate you, my friend, because I love your work and keep up the great travels around North America. Coming up next, we have a brand new feature here on Spaced Out Radio. John Hudson, a.k.a. Stetson John, is going to join us for the Unbiased UFO Report as we bring you the latest UFO news. We'll get to the Newswire and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues. Great work, Michael.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Not too quick, as usual.
Always.
We need to do a 7-hour show. What do you think?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, when I don't have to go to work the next day.
Yeah. I'm always good if you got any more panels, that way to do a lot of the heavy lifting, but
absolutely, buddy.
We'll do this again in a few months or so.
Absolutely. Go enjoy your travels for the summer. We'll talk to you come later on this year.
All right, thanks.
All right, brother. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Love him. Michael Huntington, everybody. Let's bring in Stetson John. Look at that hair. Look at that Stetson right there. Looking damn good, my friend. Looking damn good. Sure. Test your microphone if you don't mind.
Yep. Does it sound okay?
Yep. I'll get you to move a little bit closer to it if you don't mind.
Let's see if I can. See, hold on. I got an idea. Let's see here. Is that a little better?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
All right, cool.
All right. We're good. I'm excited about this. I even got a theme song for you.
Oh, wow.
You've got a theme song.
By the way, man, you got to tell Bumblefoot that when I come on late to your show, I actually rewind it just so I can listen to that intro song.
Isn't it great?
Oh, it's fantastic.
The one thing that I will always say that I have going for this show is and I'll argue with anybody, I think we got the best intro ever.
I could not agree more. And the thing, what's funny is that I thought about before, but I never really thought I'd get into this world at all. But when I heard your intro, it really hit me how important an intro is to setting the right mood and also creating almost an addictive sort of pattern for the consumer to actually you look forward to hearing it. It's like a dinner bell,
Oh yeah, I can be in the crappiest of moods. And then all of a sudden, when I hear that song come on, Little Brother is Watching, it's like, boom, I'm there, yep. I'm in, I'm ready, I'm in the zone, let's make it happen, and let's kick some ass,
Yep, agreed. Well, and that song's so perfect for you, too, because it has kind of a hockey feel to it. Like, it's a lot like the opening theme song for the Sharks. Like it totally makes me think of like getting like a team ready to go out and like take it to the ice. It's pretty cool.
I agree. Except Bigfoot's tougher. Yeah. Big Sasquatch. Got this stupid moth it picked me off in the head.
You realize, Dave, that they know how you feel and they spread it around, and now they're coming to you for entertainment. They're all going to start coming at you now.
Bastards. Yeah. By the way, Bim Jim, I want to hear that story, man. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try something here. I'm feeling a little rebellious because we have the brand new segment tonight with John coming on. You know what I'm going to do is, let's see, we are booked solid right now. Where is the 19th? I thought we had somebody for the 19th. A week from tonight. All right. We'll make it happen here. I swear we had somebody for the 19th. This is supposed to be full. Oh, this is weird. My schedule changed on me. So weird. Who the hell was next Monday? I'll have to figure it out because I got nothing on the weekends here either. I don't know what the hell happened to my schedule. Oh, well, we'll figure it out. I'm going to do open lines. Everybody's experiences. And what I'll do is I'll put the link in the chat room and you guys can come on and tell your stories. We haven't done one of those in a long time. So let's do that. Long time.
Yeah, and I'm surprised how well that works with StreamYard too.
Yeah, it's nice and easy. Nice and easy. Seriously, I don't know what the hell happened to my schedule, but what if I go there? No.
Well, for the weekend shows, could those objects also been assigned to someone else, like Lynn, and basically you lost visibility to it or something?
No idea. We'll figure it out. Here we go.
But I wouldn't explain Monday.
Hold on, John. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now we're starting a brand new feature tonight. It is called the Unbiased UFO Report, where every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, John Hudson is going to join us and give us the update on the latest UFO news that is traveling around the internet, around UFO Twitter, and around the world. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. Happy to be here.
We're glad to have you here. Now, you want to start off with Daniel Sheehan tonight.
Well, actually, Danny and also Elizondo, because they both made some pretty interesting statements tonight on Fade to Black.
Okay, what happened there?
Well, I mean, first off, I maybe I didn't pay attention to the announcement, but I thought it was just going to be Sheehan, so I was actually quite surprised when Elizondo came on in the beginning, and Elizondo was fairly talkative, and basically what immediately came up in the conversation was this story about this 23-minute long video that's been going around, which I assume you've heard about, and Elizondo was definitely, his normal protective self when it came to, probing questions and so forth. But he actually gave a surprising amount of detail. So, for example, he very quickly admitted that he's seen the video himself, that it was something that he saw while he was part of ATIP. He admitted that, he gave like a cool little story, and that he basically said that when he originally got the video, he sent it off to basically what's called an ISR group, which is an intelligence surveillance reconnaissance group, which is like a separate group that does analysis. And he didn't tag it at all. He just sent them the video as is. And when he got the video back from them, the message that he got from them was that UFO video. So, without making any very declarative statements, he was, really communicating that this group, had fair amount of confidence what they were looking at.
Was there any chance or any mention of if that video may come public?
Yeah, so basically what he said is that he certainly would not expect it to leak unintentionally. He said that the video was classified at a level because of where it was taken and what other assets were involved while it was taken. He was very careful about how he worded He called it like an official collection, a collection system, instead of even declaring like what sort of vehicle was actually collecting the data. But basically what he said was that because it was part of what was seen by the Congress as part of the classified report, that he sincerely hoped and personally had some faith that it would eventually be released. But he said it wouldn't be released by accident. It wouldn't be released via a leak. It would have to be released through official means.
Now, do you think that entire 23 minutes would be released, or we'd get maybe a 10 to 15 second snippet of it?
That's hard to say, because he was very careful about, how he described the content of the video. What he did say was that it was a very, he used some pretty specific words. He said it was extremely compelling, very definitive, and very perplexing, because he said that when you were looking at it, you'd be looking at it for a minute and you'd think, okay, now I know what I'm looking at. And then it would change and then you'd be unsure again. And he said it was so dynamic that essentially they weren't even confident as to whether it was one object or multiple objects. But he did admit that the object was large enough to hold several humans. But he wouldn't talk about the shape of it. He wouldn't talk about much else about it. He did say point blank that it was not Tic Tac shaped. So he did clarify that. But he was clearly, he clearly felt that this video was a definitive video. That essentially, if you see this video, it pretty much sets the stage and kind of lays it out very point blank.
Unbelievable. And it's probably one of those videos that we will never, ever see. And our hearts are going to be broken about it, because it will live there in myth and infamy straight on. Let's move on to another topic, because one of the things that you wanted to talk about was there's been a lot of talk about the history of UFOs.
Dave, if I can add one more fact real
sure.
quick. When Sheehan came on, there was two important things that came out. One was that Elizondo mentioned that when they met with the Inspector General, the Inspector General team said that they had no doubts that he was head of ATIP, and they wanted to get that on the table at the beginning of the meeting. And Lou basically dropped that and said, when Sheehan comes on, have him verify that. And Sheehan did. He basically said yes. They said there was no question in their mind as to Lou's role within ATIP. But the weird thing that came out was that because we've gotten from some pretty reliable sources the details talking about the fact that the classified portion was 70 to 73 pages, that there was 14 videos. Well, the 14 videos stood. What Danny Sheehan reported tonight was that the actual complete classified report with the annex of the classified report, so the classified report with the annex, was actually 400 pages.
Wow.
Which that's the first I've heard that anywhere. He was questioned about that, and he said, yes, I know that there's been other numbers thrown out. I know that some of that came from Stephen Bassett trying to get feelers out and get a sense for how long it was. But he claimed it was 400 pages. And what I found very interesting about this is that in the DoD world, there isn't just classified and unclassified. There's classified, and within classified, there's secret, there's top secret, and then there's top secret, SCI. And so part of me was kind of wondering if the report that Congress got was considered secret. Does that then imply that there's also a top secret report that would go into even more detail? And so part of me wonders if this might have been an indication for that. I mean, I don't know that for sure by any means, but if we're getting from reliable sources that there was a 73-page report, and Danny's then saying there's a 400-page report, does that imply that there's a 400-page top secret report and a 73-page secret report and a 9-page unclassified report? And that's just my guesswork there. But I was looking for a way to explain why Danny would come up with 400 and be so confident in that number, and we would have gotten that 70 to 73 number from very reliable sources like Science Bob.
Absolutely, and we'll have to stay on top of that. Let's move on, because you wanted to talk about historians and the history of UFOs on this as well.
Yeah. So today I was listening to a panel that was being done, and there were some good names on the panel. There Melinda was on there, and Grant and Dolan, and when someone like you has an opportunity to interview any one of them, typically, what you get and why I like to listen is you get to talk about their latest research, right? You get to talk about what they're excited about right now, right? What they're working on. And because there's so many new people getting into the field, and because so many people doing the interviews are also very new to the field, this very quickly became basically a history lesson about the Avery. And which, is fine. And I actually, there were probably 2 or 3 things that I learned about the Avery that I didn't know before, I guess. But, it was, and it kind of made me laugh because all I kept thinking was, my goodness, if I had a chance to interview those 3 people, that's the last thing I'd want to be talking about, because that's stuff I can get anywhere. But it also speaks to the fact that because there are so many new people into the field. I mean, I only got into this 6 years ago, and the amount of books I've had to read, the amount of podcasts the amount of real work it takes to get just a little bit, savvy on this topic is severe. And so for all the new people, there's a possibility that this kind of history lessons are needed. But to me, it was kind of like wow, you got some real, bright people with some heavy hitters, and you're basically getting a history lesson. And I think it's going to be common, but I think it was a little bit interesting,
Very cool. Now, apparently earlier this weekend that just passed, a new member of the USS Nimitz came out saying that they saw the Tic Tac. What do you know about that?
Well, so what was interesting was that's how I heard it originally as well. But when I actually read the article by Ryan, what became clear was this was actually a separate case. This was on the Vince. Oh man, the name of the ship's now failing me. Yeah, and so that's a different carrier, right? It's a Nimitz class carrier, which made some confusion. Yeah, but it's a Carl Vincent carrier, and so that's a different carrier group, and it was still a very interesting story because what happened was the guy saw an underwater UAP. He likes to sit on the deck and stare into the water, and he sees all sorts of things, squid and whales, and he does this to kind of relax. And he was doing this, and he saw what he said was a kind of a Tic Tac shaped object dart into his vision and then dive down very quickly. But it was very distinct, and it kind of blew him away. But it was not actually on the Nimitz. It was on a Nimitz class carrier. And while he did report it, the report was not welcomed. And at least from the article that Ryan wrote, there was no indication that there was any telemetry or anything else gathered. And so unfortunately, I mean, it's still a very interesting story, but it doesn't have any sort of the weight that we have on the other ones because there's no additional telemetry that came with the sighting.
Now, with this latest sighting that is coming out, do we know when it happened?
Yeah. So basically, this guy served. I apologize. I got too many numbers bouncing around in my head. But he basically got out, I believe, in 2010, and so I believe it was in 2000. It was in I think actually now that I think about it, I think he got out in 2015, and this was in 2014 because what he said was that when he initially reported it, the guy laughed at them and basically said, "People see a lot of stuff at sea," and so he basically kept it to himself, and then it was after Fravor and everyone else came out about their stories that then he felt empowered. So basically it was a sighting that happened before basically the 2017 announcement. But I'm trying to I apologize. I thought I had that in my notes, but essentially it was a case that did happen before the Nimitz case was released, but he's only reported it outside. He's only reported it since getting out of the Navy, and he only did so because of his encouragement in seeing, you know, Fravor and the others come out, because the first person he reported it to made it very clear to him that they had no interest in hearing it, so he kept his mouth shut after that.
Now, was he the only one to see it on this occasion?
Yes, he was. He was the only one to see it. And from what I know, now it's very possible, because I mean, you know, a carrier group has, you know, several vessels with it, and it's not like they don't watch what's coming underneath the carrier, right? So, you know, I have every faith that if his report had been taken seriously, and they had then tried to match his visual up with the telemetry that they were gathering all the time, that we would actually have a multi-point case that had multi-point telemetry. But because of the fact that his report wasn't taken seriously, I don't think there was any attempt to, you know, no, it's also possible that telemetry picked it up and they investigated it and they never knew that anyone saw it. I mean, honestly, him and a telemetry team could have been two ships passing in the night. They may have both seen something and not even have ever connected, because that
right.
because he faced the same negative, you know, reaction that they mentioned in the 9-page report, causing so much problems with gathering evidence.
John, we will talk to you on Wednesday night, our next episode with you in 2 nights' time. We appreciate you taking the time for us on this brand new segment on Spaced Out Radio that we call the Unbiased UFO Report. Let's get to the news. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire, the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the downright scary. Here in British Columbia, we had a real freaky story happen where multiple people are said to be dead after a crane collapsed in downtown Kelowna. Yeah, the crane fell around 11 o'clock on Monday morning as crews were working to dismantle it. The fall caused significant damage to surrounding buildings, including a senior's home, prompting RCMP to evacuate much of the area. The city of Kelowna called a local state of emergency shortly after the incident. CEO John Friesen of the Mission Group, the developer responsible for the site, spoke to the media following what we called a tragic morning. He said none of the people who died were Mission Group employees, but rather those of the sub-trade contractor taking down the crane. We want workers to go home at the end of the day healthy and safe. That is not what happened today. Any words I would come up with would pale in the shadow of so great a loss to these families. Our hearts go out to them. Richard Branson apparently went into space, or did he? Well, there's a big debate about this right now, and let's just say that people are wondering whether or not he actually went into space. Some people on the internet are saying the entire thing was faked. It was more of a question of where does space start? Branson's rival, billionaire would-be astronaut, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, seems to think it's a bit higher up than what the Virgin Galactic craft actually made. It's complicated. The Kármán line, the internationally recognized threshold where space is said to begin, is 62 miles above Earth, and Branson's craft only got to 53 miles. So did he miss it? Not necessarily. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration considers 50 miles to be the edge of space and awards astronaut wings to anyone who gets that far. Moving on. With Richard Branson's flight on the Virgin Galactic spacecraft, we Earthlings may have yet made another sortie into space. Of course, Branson met no extraterrestrials during his jaunt, probably for all the good, considering that any ETs hovering right around the edge of the Earth's atmosphere might not have joy to the world in mind. Also, to put it mildly, Branson may not have known what to say to them. This brings a question that's becoming very significant. Are Earthlings ready to meet up with extraterrestrials? What if an astronomer or radio satellite technician dials long distance and succeeds in making contact with an alien civilization? What should happen? Right now, astronomers and technicians compose their messages without diplomatic supervision and send them mostly as a binary data or mathematical symbol strings. Great. You know, Pornhub is all over this. Anthropologist John Trapagan of the University of Texas at Austin thinks that in the best interest of Earth and of any alien civilization, that practice should stop as soon as possible. Let's get to one more story here. Well, now, apparently, moths have become politically correct. It is now no longer feasible to say the gypsy moth. No, the Entomological Society of America announced that it will no longer recognize gypsy moth as the common name of Lymantria dispar because it uses the pejorative term of Romani people, according to James Dubeck. The organization has maintained a list of recognized common names for insects since the 20th century and has recognized the common name gypsy moth since 1908. They had known for some time that the moth's common name was derogatory, but received its formal request to remove the name in 2020 and then began the official review process. Now, what are they going to rename it? They're going to rename it the Moth Football Team. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Day is as follows. You ever have a bad neighbor? Tell me a story behind this. Serena, the idiot who puts his trash cans halfway out into the road because he thinks it will make people slow down on an arterial so his kids could play in the street. And then he yells, "Slow the F down," at any time for the whole hood to hear. Trying to explain that one day of an obstacle plus random screams have zero chance of altering public behavior. Useless. Gail, oh, this is a terrible story. I was the bad neighbor, Captain Shirk says. There was a very annoying man who lived in my apartment building, and one of his habits was to pace up and down our common hall, jingling the coins and keys in his pocket. That would drive me nuts as well. I usually ignored this, but one day I had an article I was writing that was due, and he was driving me nuts, so I knew his weakness, used it against him. He was terrified of June bugs. I went outside, found the biggest one I could, placed it in front of his door. Next thing I heard, the door was opening, and then, and his door slammed. This went one periodically throughout the day until my article was done. Oh, Captain Shirk. Finally, Mark. Well, he is not actually living beside me as a neighbor, but he lives not far away. A man, he is really weird, also looks for Bigfoot and aliens. What a crackpot. Tony then follows up and says, small world. I had a neighbor like that also. So what did I say? My neighbors are real jerks. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, LGAB, Twitch, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. Beauty. Beauty. There's Quest there. Fuck yeah, Captain. Take us home, you son of a bitch. That's exactly what he's saying. Hey, what'd you guys think of that new segment? Let me know. I'm going to be a little bit biased here, but I thought John did a great job. I really thought he did a great job bringing some news here with us. What do you guys think? It was a great show in general. So John is going to be joining us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. Look at it. See the moth? He gone. Yeah, John is good, Fap. You're totally right. Totally right. Thanks, guys. I was hoping you guys would like it. Yeah, we'll do an open line. I got to figure out what's happened to my schedule here. I got to call Lynn and everybody because my schedule has totally changed and erased a bunch of stuff, and it screwed me right up. Screwed me right up. I don't know why my schedule changed on me. I had somebody for the 19th, and now I have no idea who. Detailing Academy. We're proud that you're here, man. Proud that you're here. Didn't I download that yet? I guess I didn't. I'll be right back, people. Do not move. 107 of you, do not move. Sorry about that. I had to call John. And I got another moth. Son of a bitch. It's because I have my window open. That's why. They're all flying in. I don't have a screen on this window. Hey, if you're on, I'll give you guys a little bit of a note here. If you're on Twitter, okay, feel free to message Bumblefoot at Bumblefoot and let him know about how much you love Little Brother is Watching as the Spaced Out Radio theme song. He always replies. He's really, really cool that way. He always replies. And damn, you know, he's an amazing dude that way. So feel free that if you love our theme song, always feel free to reach out to Bumblefoot and let him know that how much you love the song. And of course, it's downloadable anywhere that you want to check it on out. So feel free to grab it on any streaming platform, or you can watch the video Little Brother is Watching for free on YouTube. Just hit that subscribe button for Bumblefoot. That would be really, really cool if you could do that and go from there. That would be really cool. And I think that's the start of the show right there. Yeah, that sounds like it. There's segment 1. Cut. All right. Yeah, believe it or not, Bumblefoot actually likes hearing from our audience. He really does. He's pretty humble that way. Hey, Knucker, how's it going, man? Hey, look at John Hudson there, Stetson John. How good of a job did he do tonight on the first of the start of our reports for the unbiased UFO report? I'll grab you the video here. Here's the video, the link to the Little Brother is Watching video. You guys want to copy that in, play that after we are done here. 3. Okay, Char. Devin, you know what? You got me at a crossroads with that one because I'll be honest with you, I hate talking about myself. So I'm at a crossroads with that. If Pascal, my guru, would ever come on, I would totally get into that with him. But I really try hard not to make the show mine, and I'm so not practiced enough that I'm kind of sheepish to even talk about it. Oh. I know that's probably not the answer you wanted to hear, but it's the way it is. I think that's the start. Where's the finish here? Finish is right there. Okay, so if that's the finish, I believe this is the start here. Yeah, that's it right there. Hey, Magnolia, how are you? Nikki, I don't have time. That's my problem. Hey, Steam Train Mark, thanks for letting me know I'm alive tomorrow, buddy. How's it going? How's the kangaroos around your house? Thank you. Yeah, John did very well tonight. Very well for his opening segment. We're all going to be able to stay in touch with what's going on in the UFO world because of John. That's the truth of it. And that includes myself. You know, like I don't have time to follow everything, and I'll tell you, I think John nailed it pretty damn good tonight. And we followed it up by an excellent SOR Newswire that Captain Shirk put together. It blended everything beautifully. And a quick thought of the Dave. I thought it was fantastic. It was jam-packed. That's what radio is supposed to sound like. And I thought we hit it pretty damn good in that final half hour. I really do believe that, and I'm very happy with it. Very happy with it. Give me 2 seconds here. That's when you get a team firing on all cylinders. Shirky Poo putting together a great newscast for us. And, you know, John stepping in brand new into the segment to give us the update on UFOs, especially when we don't have a UFO show. It's going to be very important for us. And, you know, of course, the thought of the Dave. It's just something that that worked tonight, and we're going to continue that little 15-minute segment I think worked perfectly. And then, like I said, with Gail and her contribution to the Newswire, perfect. It's perfect. Thank you, Mark. Please say hi to them kangaroos. Appreciate that. Hey, UFO Not, how you doing, buddy? Magnolia, I have not. What the hell is flying in here now? A wasp? Really? At this time? Now we're going to have a friggin' wasp in here? What the hell's that thing doing? Totally, Fabster. Totally. What the hell is that bug crawling in my... Seriously. What the hell are you? Come on. Come on. Come on. Oh, on top of me, you jerk. I dropped it. It's like a red spider. It almost looked like Spider-Man. Not a Black Widow, though. If it was a Black Widow, I would have killed it. I got everything. What the hell is this now? That's a giant daddy long leg. You go inside. No. Get out. All right, we're closing this. And you can't come in either. My goodness. This isn't an insect sanctuary here, for goodness sake. What the hell is on the wall over here? Oh, that's a moth. Okay. Kill that one. my goodness. It's not an insect sanctuary around here. I'm trying to be professional. Can't be professional when you got insects all over the place. Terrible. Hi, Lunar Tina. I am bugged about this calendar. This is really, really bugging me. Really, really bugging me. We'll figure it out. All right, this one's done. Let's go like this. Just bear with me. Load these up. Fabster, thank you so much for that super chat, man. Really do appreciate it, man. I'm going to invest in a fly swatter. That's what I'm going to invest in. I can't turn the lights off because then with the screens on, they'll buzz around the screen and that'll drive me nuts. We do have raid up here. Mm-hmm. All right, let's see if those came in. 45149. 16,918. Come on, get off there. All right, those are underway. Are we good? Hector, what's going on? Thanks, Bombshell Bomber. Andrew, thank you for that awesome super chat, man. Appreciate it. That's awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Oh, Listerine, eh? I'll look into that. Hey, Super Duke. Super Duke, where are you? We've got some work to do now. Super Duke, where are you? Need some help from you now. All right, let's open that up like this, like that, and close this up, and load this one up. Magic 8 Ball tomorrow night, reminder. And tomorrow night on the show, we have Mark Shaw talking JFK's assassination. No, I won't have Dr. Greer on this show. Where are we here? 92, 91. Got that going. It's kind of cool. I can still hear that moth, or that, there it is. That damn wasp. That's just annoying. These ones should be done. Done. Where the hell is Young Lake? I'm going to have to kill you. Just telling you right now, you come on over here, I'm going to have to kill you. I did not know that, Paul Holland. That bees are just evolved vegetarian wasps. We got lots of frogs here. Toads. Seen lots of bees here this year. Then again, I have like little water areas for bees all around my house. Just seems like the right thing to do. You know? I choose to listen to your show because it's interactive. It isn't a one-way conversation. I hope you're not saying that about the after show, man. Oh my goodness. All right, that is done. Appreciate each and every one of you for coming on in. I really, really appreciate it. Once again, tomorrow night on the show, Mark Shaw, JFK, and really do appreciate you guys all coming on in and making things happen and being with us, especially all the veterans who've listened to this show. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you to all our regular listeners. Thank you to FAP, Joshua, Joe, Jason, Andrew, and Chad for the amazing super chats. We love you. Thank you for accepting the new segment, as John Hudson will be here on the Wednesday night show with another UFO update. I think this is going to be a good segment, and we'll make things happen then. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, Spaced Out Radio, right here on YouTube. Tell a friend. And if you're new, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll talk to you very, very soon.